should be online very soon. Okay, controls are sorted, live stream is sorted. Just check the levels on the microphone, make sure it's not too loud or too quiet, and then it's looking good. Okay, just need to mute second screen. Okay, so we're looking good. We're on the ground at Hobart in Tasmania. As you can see from the scenery around us, it's an amazing place. And we're going to fly across Tasmania, across the sea to Melbourne on the southern coast of Australia and land at Melbourne International. We're going to follow instrument flight rules, so we'll program the aircraft up. First things first though, we need to get this aircraft up and running. Okay, so battery on, DC service on if it's available, and it probably won't be. First things first, let's start the APU. So if we look outside, we've just opened the hatch and you can hear the APU in the tail coming up to speed. So the APU is the auxiliary power unit, and it provides electricity supply and compressed air to spin the engines up. Okay, while we're waiting for the APU to come up to speed, you can see down here there's an awful lot of warnings. They will slowly disappear as we bring the systems up to speed. If we want to see the status of the electricity and the APU, we can click on the various buttons down here. So if we go and click on electricity, we'll see APU SOV is open. There we go, and things are coming up to speed slowly. Just keeping an eye on things. So APU is up and running, as you can see. So exhaust gas temperature is raising. Okay, so we can sit here on the APU all day really. It's not going to hurt it. We're just going to slowly burn fuel. So first things first, now we have electricity supply, is we go and switch the IRS system to nav, which will align the gyros which control our orientation, so the aircraft knows which way we're pointing basically. Okay, so up here we're going to go and arm the emergency lights. We're going to turn on the seatbelt sign. We're going to turn on the no smoking sign. We're going to go and switch the hydraulics to auto. We're going to turn on the... We can do the lights now actually, it's not going to hurt. I'm not following a strict set of instructions here. I'm going to turn on the anti-ice warming for the windshield, and we can start the engines. So there's an order to doing this. We want to get the engines on before we switch the air conditioning on, otherwise we might not have enough compressed air to do so in the real aircraft. I don't think it takes much notice in the simulator. So you can see now we're pulling the engines up. You'll see the numbers coming up over here. So just wait for the engines to spool up. We need to release throttles in order for that to happen. So let's make sure we've got good travel on the throttles. We have. Okay. Fuel pump's on. So we're now injecting fuel in, and you can see the N2 numbers are increasing for the gas turbines. Kilo Bravo Alpha has just commented he just happened to see the video starting. So yeah, we're just getting the CRJ up to speed. Okay, so now we have the engine spooling up. So this is the gas turbine percentages, this is the turbofan percentages, and now it's just complaining about things like window heating and stuff like that. So window heating, air conditioning. Oh, it's not going to let us do it just yet. I think I clicked on the exact moment it was going to do it. So now the engines are running, we can turn the APU off and we can close the hatch on it. And just having a look around, scanning some of the switches. I think we're good to go on most of it. So then we come down here and we go and switch the yaw damper on. We switch on stability trim and Mac trim. And we look back up here and nearly everything has gone. This is telling me anti-ice has been switched on. Did I do anti-ice by accident? Yes, I think I must have done. Wing anti-ice is on. Oh, I think I accidentally did it instead of the windshield heat. There we go. That's all looking good. Yeah, just parking brake is on now. APU door is closed, which is good. So let's go and program our route. So position initialization, we pick up the GPS from the onboard GPS system, we put it into the initial navigation to preset it. We are taking off from Hobart, so we'll go and have a look at a little nav map. YMHB is the ICAO code for Hobart. YMHB. So we key this in, YMHB, and that goes into the scratch pad, and then we just click the soft key next to the field where the origin or the departure airfield goes. Destination will be Melbourne International, which is YMML. So again, we key into the scratch pad, YMML, and we click the soft key next to the destination field, and it tells us a reference distance between the two airfields, which is correct, and we can execute that. Okay, now we want to do the departure and arrival, but we can go and do performance initialization, which it is prompting us to do. So let's go in here, we'll put in 5,000, whoops, too many. It's sometimes a struggle to get to the keys for some of these things. That's getting in the way of so 5,000 on the fuel. Cruise flight level, we're going to fly at 36,000 feet, and we're going to execute that change. Now we're going to go and look in departure and arrival. So first of all, it's looking for our departure from YMHB. We're going to use the Canley 3 departure from runway 12. So runway 12, Canley 3. Execute that. And then go back to departure and arrivals, go to arrival. So now we're talking in terms of the arrival into Melbourne. We're going to follow the WARE 7A. We haven't actually chosen all of the options for it yet. So we're coming into runway 16. So if we show arrival procedures for runway 16, we've got the ILS for runway 16 here. There we go, fully configured. So we're going to use the ILS for runway 16. We're also going to use the WARE 7A standard approach route. So RNAV for 16, no, we want the ILS for 16, there it is. And we want the WARE 7A approach route, and we execute that. So we can see most of the route is now programmed. If we go and look on the legs page, we can go next page, and in between the end of the standard instrument departure and the start of the standard approach route, we've got a discontinuity, which is quite handy because I want to put some waypoints in. So LT, we're going to put the VOR station at Launceston in. LT, goes in there, and again it comes up with a load of various options for LT, so we can go and check this, and if we show the information for Launceston we can see its latitude and longitude: 41, 32, 36. 41, those are the same as each other almost. They're within minutes of each other, so we're going to choose the top one, which is usually the closest. So LT XROM is the next one we're going to put in. So EXROM. These are just a few waypoints to help the route smooth out a bit. And then Onagi. ONAGI. And there we go. And then we can delete this discontinuity, which joins it all together, and press execute. So let's have a flick through and see if we've got any vectors. Oh, we've got another discontinuity, so we'll delete that. We'll delete the vector as well. And execute. And let's just have a quick flick through it again. See if we've got any vectors along the way. And now it's looking good. So you can now see there's a solid line on the primary flight display. And we can use zoom obviously to go into this. Okay, so let's go and set up our initial climb out. So if we just go previous to see page 1, we're climbing out to 8,000 or 11,000 feet for OMCOOL. So we're not going to you know, stress too much over hitting the altitudes. So we'll do an initial climb at least to 12,000 feet, so we can see the target altitude here. So we roll the altitude knob to get to 12,000. We're going to go and switch on vertical speed now and pre-configure it, so you can see it's just changing here. We're going to pre-configure it to climb to at a rate of 3,000 feet a minute. That's looking good. We're also going to go and move the flaps to takeoff position, which is now done. We've got the lights on. I think we're good to go. So we're just going to press, again, the pushback in Flight Simulator isn't great, but actually I've got a different pushback option, which I've never tried. So if we do this, we need to, does this parking brake option actually activate, or yes it does, it controls my parking brake. That's quite neat, so we can do that without having to look. So there's our aircraft. Oh, you'll see we still have chocks on the wheels. So if we go inside, this is unique to the CRJ. This is the Aerosoft CRJ, by the way. Oh, it's got some fun stuff like being able to see the various cameras in the galley, you know, in the alleyway behind the cockpit. We need to go into the aircraft section in the tablet and get the chocks removed from the wheels. That's done. So let's go and look outside. So let's see what happens now when we do start pushback.
Cockpit to ground.
This is ground. Stand by.
So the tag comes up. What's in the other tabs? Okay, we get quick control over the ground services as well. So this is a pushback plugin that I've installed from FlightSim.2. While the pushback is getting started, let's just go and have a quick look on the ground at Hobart. So we want to taxi up to runway 12. So we want to rotate round to the right, really.
Please set parking brakes.
The parking brakes are set. You may lift.
Parking brake set. Lifting the aircraft.
That's quite cool.
Standing by for pushback. Please set parking
Cockpit
brakes.
to ground.
Go ahead.
We are cleared for start and push. Parking brakes set.
Okay, cleared for push start. Please release parking brake.
Parking brakes are released.
Commencing pushback. You can start the engines in sequence.
It will start in the sequence.
Yeah, we've already done that. So we can control the turning of the tug, which is quite cool. So we can increase the turning rate. I like that. It's not as good as better pushback in X-Plane, but it's better than nothing. So we can actually get the tug to have a move on as well. That's very cool. And we will stop the pushback
Okay,
there.
pushback completed. Please set your parking brake.
Okay.
Parking brakes set.
Parking brake set. Lowering aircraft.
That's cool.
Ground. Startup is complete. You may disconnect.
Roger. Good engine start. Cleared to disconnect. See you at the side. Have a good flight.
Holding position waiting for the visual. Thank you and goodbye.
Okay. That was fun. I should have installed that plugin a long time ago, really. So the one thing we haven't done yet is go and arm the nose wheel steering, which I completely forgot about. So it's in the CRJ, so you have to think about some of these things. Okay, let's taxi out. So we're going to go down to the end of the runway and spin round. Okay, is this guy going? I see a small jet at the end of the runway. If he's not going, I'm going to taxi straight towards him. It's Kilo Bravo Alpha. Okay, I'll let you go first. I'll just get out of your way. I think you'll be faster than me anyway. So I'm just waiting for Kilo Bravo Alpha to leave. There he goes. And we'll follow him. So I'll wait for him to rotate and clear the runway, and then we'll go. Again, we're not using air traffic control today, so it's just being courteous. Okay, here we go, rolling. Gear up, flaps up, and engage autopilot, and engage nav mode.
Too low, terrain. Too low, terrain.
So we're climbing 3,000 feet a minute, we're gently accelerating, and we're following the standard instrument departure out of Hobart, and we will be turning for the first part of the standard instrument departure very soon. So let's go and have a look outside. Say goodbye to Hobart. So the aircraft should start turning on its own very soon. We need to go and have a look inside because we're going far too quickly. It's a beautiful day in Tasmania this morning. Looks amazing, clear skies. And we have our first pause. It's funny, I was using the simulator earlier and I had no pauses for the best part of 2.5 hours. And then we get 5 minutes into a flight and we get a pause. It will come back. I imagine it's the multiplayer has crashed. Either that or the weather servers have gone down. And there it comes. So the weather will rebuild itself. Multiplayer aircraft will reappear. Yeah, we're going far too fast for the standard instrument departure. We're missing the turns because of it. So I'm cutting the speed because we shouldn't be above 250 knots below 10,000 feet, so breaking a few too many rules for my liking. There we go. That's better. And there goes the weather, yeah. So that's where the bug was with it not working earlier. There should have been cloud and we didn't have any, and it's just loaded. So there are server issues going on in the simulator. It's funny, I've been wondering for months whether the pauses I've been seeing sometimes are to do with server issues, and that pretty much confirms it. Something somewhere rebooted or a service restarted. And we're creeping up on the speed, so I'm going to slow us down a bit. So we're coming up towards 11,000. Let's go and increase our altitude up to our cruise height. So I've changed the target altitude now to 36,000. We're still climbing at flight level, at vertical speed of 3,000 feet a minute. So we'll change to climb mode now. We can actually push this on. Got max power, we got toga power, and we got climb power. We're going to leave it in climb. And to get some speed on, we will reduce the vertical speed for the moment down to 2,000 feet a minute. Obviously, because we're not going up as steeply, we are going to accelerate. And now we're on the plan. So let's go and zoom out slightly so we can see some more of the plan. So obviously we are in the weather at the moment. We'll be climbing out of it fairly soon. So let's go and have a look from outside. So it's not quite the beautiful day we imagined. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now serving sandwiches.
So now we're climbing out. Let's go and turn off the seatbelt sign. Let people go and... Oh, I had that reversed. So yeah, off is... Off is in the middle. Okay, yeah. So we've got the smoking on auto. Okay, we're getting an overspeed warning. So we're just going to slow down a little bit, and we're going to increase our rate of climb. We're in climb mode. This plane can climb like nobody's business. So let's go for a higher rate of climb. 4,000 feet a minute. What can it do? Should we find out? 5,000 feet a minute. And we're going into a headwind, which is part of the cause of the overspeed. Obviously, because we're flying into a 45 knot wind. You can see down here. And this is relative to us, it's straight into our face. So the aircraft is still following the flight plan. So Dav Thacker on the live chat said he had the weather pop in all of a sudden as well. Obviously it looked like he was a few seconds after me, before me, but the live stream isn't live. It's a good few seconds late. So that explains that as well. Okay. So we're still accelerating. We will be in a moment. Don't want to go into toga if I can help it. The controls aren't helping me. Okay, so let's lessen our rate of climb, otherwise we're going to run out of speed in a hurry. We're already up to 25,000 feet. And we're going to go for 2,000 feet a minute at the moment. We'll lessen it off the higher we get. The air gets thinner, it becomes more difficult for the aeroplane to climb. Let's go and have a look at the leave this on the screen. There's a nice performance calculator on the tablet, but we're not actually going to use it. Let's go and scoot over to the window and get a look at Tasmania. So we're obviously following the route. It looks almost like a photograph, doesn't it? It's quite cool. Okay, how are we doing? Let's have a look at the speed. Are we gaining speed? Yes we are, but not very quickly, so I'm going to lessen the rate of climb even further. Just to 1,000 feet a minute now for the final few thousand feet. And let's let the aircraft accelerate. And get some major speed on here. Here we go. So we don't want to go much faster than 300 to give ourselves some margin against the maximum speed for the airframe. So coming up to about Mach 0.75, which is, you know, a pretty good speed for CRJ. So 0.76, 0.77 is probably a good cruise speed. Okay, it's looking good. Ah, see, we've gone over 10,000 feet. I forgot to do that as well. I'm really not doing well today. We need to move this out of the way. We need to set the barometric pressure. So if we push this, is it going to... Okay, it's not going to let us click it. Why is it not going to let us click it? It's already on 2992. Why is it flashing? Have they introduced a bug? I'm not going to be happy if they have. It's still flashing. Okay, press B on the keyboard, which does the same thing, essentially. So there appears to have been a bug there now. You should be able to press this, which will switch the barometric pressure to standard, and it will stop it flashing. And standard is 29.92. Yeah, it looked like Kilo Bravo Alpha saying he grabbed one of the built-in Cessnas. It looked like the longitude on the runway. So we have now got a fairly long way to go, so you'll forgive me if I leave it on autopilot and go and find something more interesting to do for the 20 minutes in the middle of the flight, because yeah, otherwise this would be extremely boring. And I would advise people watching to maybe do the same for half an hour, unless you want to watch the outside view and just watch Tasmania and then the sea between Tasmania and Australia stretching past underneath. This game does look amazing sometimes, doesn't it? It's a very good job. Okay, how are we doing? Coming up through 32,000 feet towards 33, climbing for 36. Heading towards LT, we're 15.4 miles away. If we were to zoom in on this, we'd be able to see it on the plan a bit more easily, but there's no real point. The next leg is from LT to XROM, which will be 139 nautical miles. Looking good. Should we look through some of the pre-programmed views in this aircraft? So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and F takes us back to the cockpit. Interesting. Obviously you can press space to sit up and down in the cockpit. So let's go and scoot across and have a look at the side. Interesting, can we actually get down into the back of the aircraft? Will this door work? Doesn't appear so, and we can't go through it either. I wonder if we can open it via the tablet and walk through it. Let's have a look. We go to aircraft. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a door we can open, well, you know, an option to open that door. Although you'd expect it to be down here somewhere. You can't see it. Because obviously we can switch on this video screen which shows us the hallway. Obviously we can cheat and use the drone cam and fly the drone cam into the cabin. So the cabin is here, it is modern. Obviously I'm not the world's best drone cam driver. There's the door on the way in. Into the cockpit, and that's the wheel well, isn't it, below? So we are getting quite high now. Keep an eye on this. So we're getting near to our target altitude, so we'll need to be careful of speed because the aircraft is going to level out. We're at 36,000 feet now. So I pulled the engines back to cruise, so it should automatically settle now onto 70 knots on the marker there. So we'll let it sit there. And we're looking good. So what I'm going to do is, while we're en route, I'm going to leave it on the outside view. I think that one looks a bit nicer. And we'll move it around slightly behind us. So we can get a bit better view of the sky. leaving the coast of Tasmania, heading out over the ocean. Look inside quickly. See what's going on. We're at 36,000 feet, holding steady, 270 knots ish, just about 275 indicated, Mach 0.82, cruising along quite happily. Systems are all looking good. So we'll zoom in on our flight plan and let's go and have a look at the little nav map and see where we are on our plan. So we've got quite a long way to go. We won't start descending in earnest until we're between X-Rom and Onagi. So you can see that on the plan where that's going to be. Let's get rid of the arrival procedures now. So we're on this leg to X-Rom at the moment. If we go to the external view, we can come over and see the coast of Tasmania vanishing behind us. Spin the camera around a bit further. See our contrail behind us. The chemtrail, as some people would insist. And there is almost no wind. Look how stable that is. Just gently moving around. Gorgeous aeroplane. This is the Bombardier CRJ550. So while we're flying along towards the destination, should we go and sit up in the window? And watch the world zooming past? Or we could have a good look at the pen in the pen holder. There's not much to see, to be honest, now until we get closer to Australia. So it's a bit of a strange one. Okay, so I'm going to leave it looking out over the cockpit, and I'm going to go make a coffee, and I'll be back in a short while. It's probably time for me to start earning my keep as a pilot in a few minutes, isn't it? Let's go and see where we are. So we've passed X-ROM. You can zoom in a little bit on this map and have a look. So we're coming up for Onagi. We'll start descending. We can see on the, get back in the pilot seat, we can see the target altitude. So when we get to Onagi, which is still 50 miles away, we need to be at 27,800 feet. That's what FL278 means, flight level, and it's in there's 2 zeros missing off the end basically. It's hundreds of feet. So 27,800. So we'll go and start that descent right now. So we're at 36,000 at the moment. We're going to move the target altitude to 27,800. And we'll start a slow... oh, the sim's paused. Give it a moment. Oh, it's going to server issues are going to be the end of us, aren't they? We'll see the instruments suddenly lurch when it wakes back up. Oh, I think it's just woken back up, yeah. So you can see over here. So we'll go to vertical speed mode. So we're looking at the vertical speed here. I'm going to come down 1,000 feet a minute for the moment. So we're not in a great hurry. We need to be mindful of the throttles if the plane starts to accelerate, at which it is doing. So I'm going to move the throttles back. To slow us down, and let's increase that rate of descent. 2,000 feet a minute. You can already see coastal Australia is arriving. One of the neat things now is we can... I'm going to go inside so it's not so noisy. One of the neat things now is we can look at the altitude plot in the nav map. So you can see we're coming down early, but we're not coming down as steeply as we might. We can zoom in on the plan here so we get a good look at it. One of the nice things you can do in the CRJ, which I've not touched upon yet, it has a head-up display that works very nicely. So you swing that round. Oops. And you get to see what's going on with the aircraft. So you see your heading, indicated airspeed, altitude. It's all looking pretty good at the moment. So we're going very fast still, so I'm going to come off the throttle a bit more. And you also get a velocity vector. It works very well until you get really close to the ground at high alphas, and then it starts to not behave itself anymore. But this isn't a fighter plane at the end of the day. I'm not quite sure if the velocity vector problems are simulator problems or this particular aircraft. You've also got indicated wind up here, so we've still got a 47 knot headwind. Okay, let's move this over and zoom in. You can see our destination marked out on the map. Down to 31,000. Let's see what our rate of descent is looking like. So yeah, it's broadly on track actually. So by the time we get down to the last few waypoints, we'll be on track for the descent. So we're going to fly kind of a pattern around Melbourne because of the wind. If we go and look at show information for Melbourne Airport down here, we've got winds of from 350 degrees at 11 knots. Actually, that makes no sense then. We may need to rethink this arrival. The wind has changed since I planned the flight. So let's go and do that while we're in midair. Show arrival for... We want to come in runway 34 then, ideally. So we're just superimposing these on to see how we can change our existing flight plan to use one of these. That would work. We're overspeeding. I'm just going to cut back. So we're going to go instead for port 6A into runway 16. So let's go and change the flight plan. Departure arrival. We need to go to the arrival page. Runway 34. This isn't... Oh, okay, yeah. So we need the runway 34 RNAV approach. Insert. That's looking better. So 34, port 6A, and then RNAV. So next page, RNAV for 34. Next page, port 6A, execute. So we've just changed our flight plan quite drastically, and this is drawing it incorrectly. Oh, of course we've got some waypoints now that we don't want. So let's go and have a look at our legs page. Onagi, Warren, ML80. ML80 needs to go. So delete ML80. Delete Warren. And then delete the discontinuity. And execute that. And that's looking a lot better. So we're at 27,000, we really need to come down now. So we need to be at 9,000 for ports, which is the next one. So altitude. So we have a set altitude target of 9,000, and we're going to set our descent rate to be quite extreme. Which handily we can, because we have cut the throttle and we're coasting to a stop almost. So let's go for 4,000 feet a minute, or 3.5. Let's see how it goes. We can extend the air brakes if we need to arrest our acceleration. So this is a bit of rapid recalculation because of the conditions on the at the destination, so we can come down much more steeply if we need to. 4,000 feet a minute. We'll let the plane accelerate for a while and then we'll arrest the descent. So we need to be 9,000. We're at 25, so 15,000 over 40 miles isn't too bad. Go for 3,000 feet a minute. Can speed back up. Otherwise we'll be up here all day. Don't need the head-up display at the moment. To be honest, we never need it, but don't tell the purists that. So we will only need to really slow down when we get to 10,000 feet, so we'll leave it falling out of the sky gently. So you can see we're roughly aiming for the descent we need. We're going to go flying right over Melbourne City and have a good look around on the approach. So this is an RNAV approach, so it will be a visual landing. It's not a serious concern at all. I practice landings quite a lot. I don't need ILS. I actually prefer not using ILS, to be honest. It has its place, but I think it's good practice to not rely on approach mode or autopilot to take you all the way in all the time. I actually like to maintain skills, as they say. Okay, so the height is coming off. We're looking good. Let's zoom in again on the primary flight display. So it wants us at 230 knots. Once we get to, we want to be below 9,000 feet. Okay, so we can actually go much lower. That's good. So now, so we'll slowly bleed the speed off now to get back to 230 by the time we get there. So we can always extend the air brakes, which is the handle right here, if we need to. Because if you look, we need to then be above 3,000 for the next waypoint. So when we get nearer to 10,000 feet, I will throw the air brakes out to get us down to 250 knots. So it's not a major concern at all. So welcome to Melbourne. I guess this is the wider area around Melbourne, really, isn't it? This is Frankston we're just about to pass over. This is Frankston. And we're just over the top of Somerville, which is this town here at the moment. Mount Eliza is just over there. Or here, sorry, I should say. Looking over to our right is Cranbourne, is over there. Well, I guess it's the built-up bit. And just looking on the map, we've got Seaford just here, or Seaford, I'm not sure how the locals would pronounce it. And then out on the bay you've got Cheltenham, Mentone, what's that, Mordialloc, Aspendale, just stretching off around the bay. And that's a hell of a golf course. Okay, so let's go and have a look inside. Coming down to 10,000 feet, let's get those air brakes out and watch the speed come off. We'll also so our sightseeing escapades made us a little bit fast coming through 10,000. But nothing too bad. Okay, you can see the altitude is flashing. It wants us to recalibrate for the ground, which I've just done. So 29.83 is the local QNH. So we can get rid of the VFR map now. We can zoom in a bit further on our... So we're looking for below 9,000, above 3,000 for S-Lock. So you can see S-Lock is just coming next. So we're basically just judging it down now. And it wants some more speed to come off. By the time we get to Acdel, it wants us doing 185 knots. So I'm letting the speed fall off. Obviously as we descend we're getting into the thicker air anyway, which is helping us brake naturally. Fernando Matlas Obando, it says hi in the chat room. So hi Fernando, nice to meet you. So we're just on approach into Melbourne International Airport. So we are descending at the moment over the east of the bay. So you can see this here. We're just coming past Moorabbin over on the right. It's in the cloud though. Can't really see it much at the moment. Let's keep an eye on the speed. We're getting too slow, so I can't keep looking away now. I'm going to have to keep an eye on it. So we've got a bit too slow there. Let's go open the throttles. So we're on the money coming through the port's waypoint. And making the right turn towards S-Lock. So if we look at the approach, above 3,000 at S-Lock, so we will descend for 5,000. So we have moved the target altitude to 5,000 feet. We need to choose a rate to get there, so we'll just come down. There's no big hurry. 1,500 feet a minute. Notice that's making us accelerate. We have to be mindful of getting down to 185 knots. So to help us do that, we're going to start bringing the flaps out. So we've just extended the leading edge slats, and you can see that has happened on the aircraft. Yeah. You see that? And there's the city over there. It's Melbourne. And we are coming directly in to land. You can see the runway out ahead of us. So we're going to cheat a little bit at this point and pull down the head-up display, which will help us enormously with the lineup. Okay. Next level of flaps. So you can see the flaps are moving on the display there. Next level of flaps. Let's open the engine slightly. Gear down. Landing lights on. And we are pretty much configured for landing. We just need to keep reducing the flaps as we get closer now. So I'm going to come off the autopilot very soon. We can ignore the symbology on the head-up display, to be honest. Yeah, let's get this out of the way. It's just annoying. We can fly this. So off the autopilot. Get the next level of flaps. Okay, we are at full flaps, gear is down, landing lights are on. Pretty much configured for landing. So I'm just going to have a little bit of a nose at the city while we go by. So the plane's just basically trimmed out, it's flying itself. We'll set it up for landing in a moment. We're a bit too far away to get the detailed view of the scenery. But you can see the houses we're passing over on approach. Okay, we're going quite slowly, so let's open the throttles a little bit. Obviously as we accelerate then we get more lift over the wings, so I'm having to trim it slightly to counter that. It's all looking good. So let's go left slightly and line up the runway. Essentially yes, someone's asked what the difference is between the RNAV and VNAV. So yeah, it's essentially you're manually flying it, and if we had the paper chart to look at, the RNAV would have the heights at various distances as checks. So you're basically, it's just a manual approach really. So the crew don't get to press the approach button or anything, they have to fly it. But it's not difficult, you know, you can see just coming in smoothly. If I was following the chart I would have...
We are about to land. Please remain seated until we have stopped.
You'll notice on the oh, I didn't put the seatbelts on, did I? That was the seatbelt switch. It's over here, isn't it? On. It's on auto, but what was I saying? Oh, you will notice on the approach there's lots of waypoints. That's for the distance checks. So the GPS will still tell you when you're at each waypoint. So if I was flying the RNAV approach properly, referring to a paper chart between the pilot and the co-pilot, they would be reading out, you know, the next limit. So they would then use their own experience to know the descent rate between the markers and the speeds at each marker as well. Obviously you get different aircraft types, so it's dependent on the aircraft type. So we're coming in a little bit high, but it's not really a concern. Melbourne International is huge, isn't it?
1,000.
It's quite a still day, which is helping us.
Sink rate. Sink rate. 300. Sink rate. 200. Sink rate. 100. 50. Sink rate. 40. 30. 20.
Okay, slightly off the centre line, but it'll do. I don't trust this joystick at the moment to do fine control of the landing run. And there's somebody just turning off ahead of us, but we're going to take the high-speed exit here. I mean, we're already down to 50 knots, 40 knots, so not a concern. Okay, flaps are up. And on the way back to the terminal, typically you would reach overhead, or one of the pilot or the co-pilot would go and switch the APU back on and open the cover for it. So by the time you get to powering the engines down, then you would have the APU to provide power to the systems, so you don't go cold and dark in the cockpit by accident. So let's go and find somewhere to park. Obviously we would have in the real world we would have transferred to ground. They would have given us taxi instructions. Yeah, landing could have been better. Wasn't on the centre line, but it'll do. Okay, let's go and follow some lines around here somewhere. Where should we park? Do this from outside. Okay, parking brakes on. If we go and look over here, the APU is now operating, so we can cut the engine. Cut this engine, and the APU will provide power in the absence of the engines. So fuel pumps off, packs off, recircling off, turn the seatbelt signs back off, so then you hear the consternation behind us as everybody tries to get out of their seats at 100 miles an hour. What else do we need to do? Lights off. Let's go and sit back in our normal place. Off, off. Oops, off. Hydraulics off. Oops, missed the switch. Landing lights off. Taxi lights off. Move all this back to off. Disarm the emergency lights. And the rest of it is pretty much self-explanatory, so we can then switch off the APU. Sim has paused, which is typical. We were on the ground there and it suddenly paused for a moment. That is engines elsewhere we can hear, by the way. It's not ours. We've closed our engines down. So there you go, we made it. We made it to Melbourne in one piece. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I'll do another flight soon, and I'll see you all soon. Okay, yeah, we can hear there's an aeroplane manoeuvring over here. Don't quite know what he's up to, but there we go. Right, I'm going to sign off right there, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for following, people in the chat room. Much appreciated. And go visit virtualflight.com.